Somebody tell me why
I'm sold.
this was never in any of Meta's presentations. How is me putting a phone camera in the Quest Pro headset the most compelling demo of VR I've seen in like the last 5 years? But I have some hot takes on this whole Metaverse thing that I kept to myself for a little while, but I think it's finally time to share them, so buckle up.
I'm really glad that somebody's like, because I'm pretty sure I know the kind of stuff he's going to say. This guy's pretty smart. I like him. And so, like, obviously, he's probably going to say a lot of the same stuff that I think, you know, of course. And it's like, I think that for like a year, nobody criticized like NFTs, Metaverse, or like crypto stuff at all. And I'm so glad that like now this year, it's all crashing down and people are being forced into seeing the reality. It's great.
Let's get into it. So Meta's stock is down over 60% this year. Facebook's growth has flatlined, and their CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, has doubled down on this commitment to the whole Metaverse thing, which
by the way, I still think is a huge mega dick mode. Like, this is a mega dick move for Mark to do. To just say, fuck everybody, I know I'm right, it's my fucking company, and a captain is gonna go down with his ship. Yeah, I'm impressed, man. Very few people have the balls to do that.
Continued to pour tons and tons of money into. It's like, what is going on here? But let's just zoom out a second and start with some definitions. VR is virtual reality, which is, putting the headset on and being completely immersed in a new virtual world.
Yes.
AR is augmented reality, which is overlaying virtual things on top of the real world. I'm going to use those a lot in this video. Those two things, though, are both particularly hard to demo. You kind of have to try it and use it to actually understand it and appreciate it. So I know there's a lot of curiosity about VR, especially lately, and it can be kind of hard to tell if it's like just another trend in tech, like 3D TVs, whatever happened to those, or if it's actually the future that we'll all be living in, like Ready Player One. Or maybe more like WALL-E. Hard to tell. Either way.
Probably more like WALL-E. And yeah, I think so. Yeah, it will be. It's just a matter of when. I think the question is this happening in the next 5 years or the next 50? That's really the question that people have. I think that VR is not really going to take off until they can make it to where you don't have to move around. Like, I feel like that's a huge reason why people don't do VR. Like, I would do VR if I didn't have to move around. I don't want to move around. But I don't want to move my hands around. Like, I just want to sit there and just have it do what I want. I could dream.
There's basically one visible mega company that's clearly pushing all their chips in on this definitely being our future.
Yes.
And that's Meta, formerly known as Facebook, with their CEO, Mark Zuckerberg. This guy right here.
He is.
And he explained to me many times that they really believe in this Metaverse thing. And he showed me all of this Quest Pro stuff right before it was announced on stage. So I got to form my opinions on it before the slightly more cringeworthy presentation version we've all seen. The Metaverse might have a pretty terrible reputation already, but let's try to take a step back, look at it objectively like a piece of tech, shall we?
Who cares about the meta? I feel like people obviously like the idea of a metaverse, or MMOs wouldn't be popular. MMOs are metaverses. So, like, yeah, of course.
So, like I said, VR is one of those things you kind of have to try to understand and appreciate, but also the spectrum of how much people care about the metaverse is hilarious, like all the way from not caring at all and never having tried VR in their life, all the way to like serious believers, like companies hiring a chief metaverse officer and metaverse being in every headline, and just like a weird obsession.
I feel like having a chief metaverse officer is a good way to get your stupid cousin a job. It's like, like there's no, like, I mean, we can't have him in charge of the finances. We can't have him in charge of marketing. Like, we'll put Timmy, let's have Timmy on, the metaverse. He's going to be the metaverse, guy. And we'll give him a mil a year. Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's nepotism. Exactly. Like that's like the exact kind of like position to have in a company that you don't really have to do anything. It's great.
With it. So it can be kind of hard to give a single answer to this, but I actually think It's pretty simple. The internet, as we have it right now, is mostly controlled by two things: ads and devices. So if you control the ads, then you're the one connecting people to the things that they buy. That's basically what Google does. Like, Google's job is to know everything they possibly can about people and then show them ads for things, not just on Google search results, but all over the internet with Google AdWords. Pretty much every company in the world who does online advertising pays Google to do it for them. So for as much as we
That's true. Google AdWords and Google AdSense is the best analytical program that at least is publicly available. And it's not even remotely close. Like, compare Google ads and YouTube ads to Twitch ads. It's insane. Yeah, it was ahead of YouTube, or sorry, it was ahead of Twitch and Amazon 15 years ago. Ask Jeeves is better? Yeah, true.
Talk about like the Pixel and Google Chrome and Android on this channel. Google is at its core an ads business. And then if you control the devices people use, then you very much have control over what makes it to people's eyeballs. Facebook has wanted to make a popular device, but they don't make one. Trust me, they've tried. But now, in 2022, as popular as Facebook is, they have clearly saturated the market. They've peaked. They've begun their inevitable, very slow decline. And so they've made their bazillions of dollars. But now, with things like the iPhone adding that Ask App Not to Track button, that took a multi-billion-dollar chunk out of Facebook's ads business. Didn't really hurt Google as much because people still go to google.com and type in a box what they're looking for. Google still knows a lot about people. So bottom line is Facebook is accepting that L. You know, they dominated the early parts of the internet, and that was great, but now the slow decline has begun, and they're moving on to the next big thing.
Right. I think that's the case. And Facebook also, like, we watched videos about how Facebook is declining, and I think it's mainly people view a stagnation in revenue or a stagnation in growth as a decline. But the fact is that, like, there's over 1 billion people that have used Facebook. It's like at a certain point, everybody that knows about Facebook is either going to use it or not. Facebook is still absolutely fucking massive compared to every single other social media platform.
And if you could look all around at all the technologies that could maybe be the next big thing, that one thing that keeps bubbling back up to the surface has been VR and AR. And so Facebook, Meta, can control as much of this VR future as possible, the software, the hardware, the ads, the things that make it to people's eyeballs. Then they will regain the control and the money that they're after.
So exactly. No, he's totally right about this. He's 100% fucking right about this. Like, remember what I was saying? How, like, the companies wanted to have VR so they can be God? Because, like, there's no rules in VR or their own metaverse? Because they can do whatever they want? Yeah, of course. That's why these companies want to have a metaverse, because it gives them total fucking control over everything that happens inside of the metaverse. So yeah, eyeballs will be obsolete soon. There you go.
Them rebranding themselves to Meta and pouring billions and billions of dollars into that exact mission.
Want to be God.
Okay, so this might be kind of a hot take, but the Meta Quest Pro, this headset, is $1,500, and I'll explain the thinking behind that in a second. But
that's a lot of money.
It is actually pretty good. It's a pretty good, technologically speaking, a pretty good headset. It is much.
The truth is, like, obviously VR headsets are still in the early adopter innovator phase, where you are paying to subsidize the research in buying them. Like, it's not at the point now where, like, these things are basically being sold at the cost of the product, the product resources. Obviously, it's going to take a while for them to get there. They're still too bulky? Yeah, I think so.
More comfortable than a lot of others I've tried, so they've split the components now between the displays and lenses in the front, and speakers and buttons through the middle, and then the battery at the back. It is lighter than it looks, but I think it's more about the balance and the weight. Here you can see, it feels like the balance point is right in the middle there, which is better. But then you put it on and you look like this. Here you go. Boom. And without the blockers on the side, there is a little bit of a gap, and you do have peripheral vision light coming in from the side.
Yeah, I thought that was weird too. I remember whenever he showed the one where he, like, Mark Zuckerberg was right there behind him, looking at him doing it. I thought that was weird too, because you could see the side of his eye. Like, how do you have immersion with that?
Sides and not the top. Inside, there is a custom Snapdragon XR2 Plus processor, 256 gigs of storage, 12 gigs of RAM, and then a slimmer set of displays and lenses. And then the screens inside are giving you 1920 by 1800 per eye at up to 90 FPS. And it can do this decent full color pass through with the 10 sensors and cameras scattered around the outside. It's not the best pass through I've ever seen, but it does work, and it lets you feel like you're in a normal environment.
Yeah.
Plus, there's these new Touch Pro controllers, which have cameras and sensors of their own, and they all charge on a single dock through some pins, which you'll be doing often because, sadly, the headset does just have like a 1.5 hour battery life when unplugged. But then there's also...
So we going back to the old Sega Game Gear. At least we don't need 6 fucking AA batteries for this. There's just a charging station.
A suite of sensors on the inside facing your eyes, facing your face, for face tracking. Okay, right now I'm looking at an alien face, but a little bit more interesting than that is the alien face is in real time showing what the headset sees my face doing. And so every expression that I make, every little facial movement, the eye movements, it's kind of a lot of the little things too, like the little muscles on your face that move when you talk and you make little micro expressions.
I think it's also important to contextualize this, that this technology is very clearly rudimentary. This is not a final product of technology. Whenever we look at this in 20 years, it will not look like this. So I think that really the impressive part about this is the fact that it's possible and the development of it, not necessarily the quality of it at this point.
If I was in a virtual world and trying to convey emotions to another person, then they would see everything. That's pretty cool. VR and AR both work pretty well through this headset, but at the end of the day, it still is a pretty chunky, it's a pretty big headset. It doesn't fold down either, so if you want to travel with it, you need like a bag or a backpack. This version might not be tempting to you. Zuckerberg keeps telling me, you know, people buy a new $2,000 machine as their desktop computer all the time, and this is maybe a replacement for that someday. But
I don't think that they spend $2,000 on it, and I think that's not really as common as you might imagine. There are a lot of people that do that, but I don't think that it's that large. I think most people that are computer enthusiasts also... Like, you use a computer for a lot of other things. It's kind of like, you know, selling racetracks, or like having like a racetrack place and saying, oh, well, you know, people are going to buy race cars all the time because they buy cars all the time. Well, it's like, not really, because you're driving your car around to go to work, to go to Taco Bell, to go to your friend's house, to go to, you know, C-Mart, etc. So, like, computers have, like, so many purposes and uses that it does justify the price of them. And so unless the, you know, these VR headsets can have that many purposes and uses, then it's not really going to matter. It's kind of the same thing with, like, phones, right? I remember whenever the iPhone came out, the iPhone was, like, ridiculously fucking expensive whenever it came out. It was like $700 or something like this. I don't remember it exactly, though. I could be wrong about the number, but it was a lot. And people are like, well, why the fuck would I spend this much money on a phone whenever I can get a fucking, you know, one of these random ass, like, flip phones for $80, $150? And the value proposition wasn't really in people's minds yet at the time that the phone would serve as more than just a phone. Because whenever you have a smartphone nowadays, like, you guys probably use your smartphone to check the email, you use it to check, you know, watch YouTube videos, to maybe do work online, to take pictures. Like, smartphones have so many different functionalities. Like, for maps, like, I mean, that's a huge thing, right? Like, if I want to go somewhere, I just put it on Google Maps, there it is, it's done. And yeah, to drive somewhere. So I think that expanding the scope of the of these things is also really important, because I do think that as technology increases, the price of these headsets will probably not go down for the very foreseeable future. Because while, yes, obviously the technology will become less early adopter, like, focused, the technology quality will continue increasing in the way that it's like formatted and like given to you. And in doing that, the price will probably continue to like stay about the same at like $1,500 for like a really high-end one.
This might not be tempting to you, but theoretically, in a couple of years, a new version of it is much, much smaller, closer to like a regular pair of glasses. And then even further down the road, another version is even smaller, maybe lightweight like Google Glass used to be back in the day. And then eventually, it's an incredible, actually portable piece of tech. And so, theoretically, if you pour enough money and talent into something, it can become amazing.
No, and as I said, I really respect, the Mark Zuckerberg approach to, I know this is the future. All of the investors are wrong. Everybody is wrong except for me. And I'm going to put all of my money behind this. I can respect that so much.
Which leads me to my next point. This is the real question here. Every time I see a new VR headset pop up, whether it's this like Pico Pro headset or the Meta Quest Pro or anything like that, the question is always like, is this VR thing really actually going to be the future? Like, it's cool with tech and it works and everything, but are we actually going to be spending meaningful time in VR at some point? And the answer, of course, depends on who you ask, obviously.
I think the answer is probably going to be yes. I think the answer will be yes, but it's incomprehensible what that yes looks like right now. It's the same as like if you were to ask somebody, in 1960, in 50 years, will everybody be in front of computers and using computers? And they say yes. And like you ask them, how would that work? The way that they would explain it in 1960 is probably not the way that it works right now. You see what I'm saying? Like, I think that's the destination, but I don't know how we get there or what it looks like.
Like, I've noticed the younger the person is that you talk to, the more likely they are to want to give VR a chance or to try it more often. But if you ask Meta,
That's not my dad. My dad is like fucking 75. He is all the time. He's like, so how's it going? Like, so am I going to be able to go back to Vietnam? Like, what is this? Like, I want to, like, we've got to get this shit going pretty soon here. I want to be able to use this and use this VR, be able to do whatever the hell I want before I get too fucking old. So, yeah, it's not only young people.
Ask anyone in leadership at Meta, the answer is yes, absolutely, 100%. This is the future that we are all going to be living in, using VR all the time. Metaverse for sure. Now, of course, they have to believe in that because the whole company is a huge ship barreling in that exact direction.
Of course.
But also watching the presentation of everything at the Meta Connect keynote, as miserable and awkward as it was, the more you watch, the more it kind of crystallizes their whole plan for me. Basically, step one, think of all the things people normally do on the internet. Mm-hmm. Step two, make those things.
I feel so bad for Mark Zuckerberg. Because it's like, even if he does something normal, people are going to be like, wow, this is what would happen if you taught a lizard how to drink a soda. It's like everybody has just already decided that Mark Zuckerberg is probably a robot, and he's not a real person. Yeah, it's like, yeah, dude, Zuckerberg's so weird. I don't know if he's so weird. I actually have no idea. I remember... The reason why I don't think that he's as weird as people think he is in one of the leaked conversation, he called all of the people who were using, who were using Facebook fucking idiots for giving him all of their information. And I feel like a robot wouldn't say that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he called it, he said his own users were fucking idiots. And he's right. That's the best part about it.
In VR, and then pour tons of money into them. And then that's kind of the whole plan. If you get the time and you actually get to watch through that presentation, it happens over and over again, where basically they realize...
As I've said, I really think that porn is going to be the innovator for VR. Why have we received so many different quality options for video? Mainly because of porn. If you show somebody realistic fucking... Look how many people are using... All right. So let's go ahead and let's do something here, all right? let's go ahead and look. This is a graph, a pie graph of the different reasons people use AI art. Okay. So that's about where we're at. Okay? So, think about how much innovation and how much AI art has grown in the last 5 years. It has totally changed. It's completely different than what it used to be. It has changed faster than probably anything else has in the last 5 years. Because of porn. All VR chat has to do, all Mark Zuckerberg has to do, is just do that. I understand it might not seem like a good idea to the fucking, 65-year-old investors, but they're going to be on this platform too. It's just whenever they get home, they're going to get on the platform and they'll pretend like they're not, but, of course they will. That's all it's going to take. That is what will drive innovation in VR.
That people do certain things in real life, and then they want to bring that thing into VR. Mm-hmm. Oh, you'd like to do this? Here's a VR version. Oh, you do this other thing? Here's a VR version. Over and over again. And ideally, for them anyway, convincing people to use the VR version just will become a matter of making the VR version really, really good.
Yeah.
Hopefully better than the real life version. And that's where I think my hot take comes in, which is that some of these VR applications are actually scary good and starting to look better than the non-VR version. And for Meta, if they can get enough of these things to be real, then they'll be making this...
Well, they can absolutely make it real. Like, they can make it to where it's like you go to Chuck E. Cheese and the year is 1995. And everybody's sitting there, wearing fucking Dallas Cowboys, Super Bowl winner hoodies and T-shirts, and everybody wants to play the new Jurassic Park game. So VR will always be able to outperform real life because real life can only be extemporaneous. It can only be in the here and now, whereas VR can exist at any point in time.
Metaverse thing happen.
Gretchen, stop trying to make
Metaverse
happen. It's not going to happen.
Okay, so some are easier than others, right? Gaming, yeah, we've got some good games already in VR. Now, we got to work on getting more, like a better variety of games, better fidelity, etc., more immersion, and pouring money into this ecosystem will entice developers to rapidly improve games and make better games.
But I don't want to move around, man. Like, I don't want to move around. Like, that's why I never really played a Wii a lot. Like, I don't want to get up. I don't want to get up. I want to just sit on my desk and just fucking play the game. Yeah, it's just a gimmick. Fuck this.
Is awesome. But there's more to life than just games. What else do people do all day in 2022? Zoom calls? Okay, perfect. Yes, they've got Zoom calls, but better. They've built an entire virtual meeting room experience where you can do video conferencing in VR with other people. So, if some of your friends or coworkers don't have VR headsets, that's fine. They'll show up as a floating video feed in the metaverse. But now with a bunch of people in meetings, you can talk to the people around you. You can do breakout meeting rooms instantly, really good immersive presentations, etc. Now, currently, as you can tell, these are all using these avatars. And these, I think, are bad. They're pretty cringy. I mean, you can customize them, of course, with a bunch of different things.
Well, they look like, as I said, this is the first thing I said about these fucking characters, is it looks like Mark Zuckerberg just went to Nintendo and said, yeah, give me the me thing where you're able to make a character that looks like you on the Wii. Yeah, the one from 2006. Yeah, give me that, and we're going to use that in this year. That's what it is. They're amiibos. They're awful, man. Holy shit.
Different hair and features and outfits and piercings, etc., which is kind of neat, sure, but you still end up feeling like a metaverse meeting is just a bunch of me characters from Nintendo Wii. But it's very
Everybody fucking knows it. Fucking obviously. Obviously. Pre-watch?
Pretty much a
yeah, there you
stopgap
go.
because we also saw that Meta announced this live avatar demo that looked absolutely wild to me. You can essentially use your phone to take a scan of yourself, and then the headset takes that and puts a photorealistic version of you into the virtual environment, complete with that face tracking and eye tracking and everything that we talked about before. That is super next level. So you can imagine now, instead of just a Zoom call with coworkers, a really good meeting is a bunch of people from all over the world all in one room with all the advantages of the eye contact and relative audio positioning and being able to like lean over to the person next to you and say something really quietly just to them. All of this is stuff that you can't really do in a Zoom call.
Yeah.
And so just replace these weird avatars with the hyper-realistic ones, and they might be onto something. But that's just meetings. That's not even that much time. What else do people do?
His camera is so good. I need to get his camera. Holy shit, this is such a great camera.
Maybe they just work remotely, period. Sure, okay, then they'll build this whole metaverse, this whole virtual office building for people who work in. So if they work all over the world in different countries, they can all collaborate in the same spaces. But even the first thing I showed in this video, which is just simply working on your computer, which is a thing that many people do for many hours a day. And the Quest Pro has native Mac support that let me project my Mac screen onto these multiple huge virtual screens. So you can take a huge triple monitor setup wherever you go, basically. You can just take this headset. So you can take a huge triple monitor screen onto these multiple huge virtual screens. So you can take a huge triple monitor setup wherever you go, basically. You can just take this headset with you and do way more with fairly high resolution that can, again, get better with time and more money. They've poured money into Microsoft to bring Office 365, Word and Excel and everything into workrooms
monitors
natively.
With no monitors.
They've poured money into Accenture to give them like thousands and thousands of VR headsets to get those people to use the metaverse to work virtually all the time. Basically, Meta can and will dump a ton of money into this because that's all they're doing right now. There's like a common trope.
No, it's smart because like social media apps, like I do think that social media apps being a global phenomenon will die. I think that you're seeing this now and like the cracks in this happening now with like Twitter, the Elon Musk acquisition. It's over because the social media apps have become so powerful and so influential as tools that the government can't ignore them. And we're already seeing this happen with different governments trying to regulate the social media platforms. And you're going to see this happen even more and more and more. And I think what the outcome of that will ultimately be is that people will be on their own social media platforms that are just for certain groups of people in the world. And I actually think this is a horrible thing. I think one of the greatest things about the internet is I can play with somebody from Qatar. And I can be like, well, what's it like with the World Cup? And they can tell me what it's really like without me having to fucking read something on CNN, and they say it's something totally different. So yes, like gaming and the internet is so good for those reasons. And I'm very worried about this happening. And I think that almost for sure it will, unfortunately.
That like if you want to make a bunch of money as a startup right now, just make a virtual reality tech startup in some way. And you will eventually level up enough to just get acquired by Meta. It's no wonder chief metaverse officers became a thing. That became a way to like make it seem like you might get acquired by Meta. But that brings us to the last thing. There's only one problem that I have with all of this, which is that one company controlling the entire foundation of this second generation internet, if you want to call it that.
Yes, it's obviously a problem, and that's why they want to have it. If a company is investing billions and billions of dollars into something and will stop at nothing to have it released, you're right. This is a big dick move. But it also might not be good for everybody else. You've got to think about like, so most of these companies operate on the idea that they're going to make this money back. So, like, how are they going to make this money back? How does that actually happen?
Is a terrible idea. So this comes down to Meta wanting as much control over this future as possible.
Exactly.
Facebook was built on someone else's foundation. They want to build the next foundation and then be the ones responsible for everything that grows up on top of it. The workrooms, the games.
They want to be the Google of the metaverse, where like everything has Google or Alphabet DNA inside of it. Like 90% of things on the internet are something to do or another with Google or Alphabet. Or Microsoft, sure, you can use Microsoft as well. IBM,
the experience
in the 80s
is everything. So
sure.
that they're pretty visibly pouring as much money into it now as possible to get as far ahead as possible. Now, plenty of other companies are developing and making really cool VR stuff now along those same lines, don't get me wrong. There's the Pico headset I just showed you. There are stuff from Google, stuff from, I think we all expect in the next year or so, Apple to finally unveil their VR headset, which I think will make Meta a little bit nervous because Apple will for sure make sure that's the best.
They're going to make a better one. Apple is 100% going to make a better one. I guarantee it. Like, you guys might not understand this, but like, Apple, like the original Apple desktop PC was definitive. Absolutely fucking definitive. iPod, absolutely fucking definitive. iPhone, absolutely fucking definitive, completely changed everything. And then even the iPad, absolutely fucking definitive. Every other fucking tablet works like an iPad. That was Steve Jobs? It was. And there's a huge question, will they be able to keep up that momentum now that Steve Jobs isn't there? Great question. But I would argue that probably, I mean, you had Steve Wozniak back then. You had a lot of other people that worked on Apple throughout the years that were probably influential in these kinds of things. It's not just one person. So I don't know. I do think that Apple, I would bet on them coming out with the best one.
One for iPhone users. But Meta has already, made so many connections and built so many technologies and bought up so many VR companies and VR studios.
Yeah, they're trying to control the market.
It sucks, but it's like, if there's any company that can be positioned to bring this technology over the hump to make it a thing, then it's Meta. But the downside of that one, especially this company, having possibly that much control over people and over the future of the internet, and possibly doing crazy things like using eye tracking to make sure you see certain ads.
Exactly.
Is way too much for me to want to root for it at all. I've said it before, but when...
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, these companies want to be God. They want to control everything that you do. They want to have access to your finances. They want to have access to what you're interested in, what you're attracted to, everything. They want to be part of your life.
Companies truly compete. That is actually when we win. When there's actually real incentive to get better.
I think that I think he's right about this. Yes, 100% you're right about this. But I think that it needs to be regulated. Like, I say this about everything. Because if you don't have the government making these decisions, you do not need a formal conspiracy when interests converge. Every company is going to want to do the eye tracking with ads thing. It's the same thing as how every company now does pre-orders for games. Even though there's no reason to do it. Every company has DLC and microtransactions for games. It's not like they were all fucking just randomly, like, they didn't get together and decide this. It's just what's beneficial for them. It's the same as all of these companies. Like, look up the term planned obsolescence. Planned obsolescence, just very simply, is whenever a type of technology is designed to only work for a certain period of time, and then it will only be updated for that long, and then after that, it's pretty much going to fall apart, right? AKA Apple products, or, I mean, honestly, I feel like the same things happen with, like, my phones, too. But either way, I usually use the Samsung or Android phones. This is not necessarily good for the customer, but every company does this. And that's what will happen. And so people don't complain about it as much because it's become the norm, but the only reason why it's become the norm is because there's no consumer protection.
competition makes them better. That's when we get better stuff.
But he's right about this too.
But
it's not just one thing,
Mark's
it's two things.
Metaverse money might make the meta thing much more mainstream.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. Thanks for watching. Catch you guys later. Peace.
This is a really, really good fucking video. God damn, we need to watch more of these. These are amazing. I'll link you guys the video. Yeah, I'll link you guys. Yeah, this is really good. I feel like he covered pretty much like everything that I would have wanted them to talk about. He talked about all the stuff that I wanted them to talk about. I was very happy to see that. Can you watch the trailer on a day before and the allegations? Sure, give me a minute. Planned obsolescence destroys the climate. Yeah, but nobody cares about that, so there you go. Let's go back over here, and I will type this in real quick. There's mountains of tech in Indonesia and many other countries. Well, I think that really the metaverse in itself is a way that companies can get around a lot of types of regulation because it's an unregulated market. And if a company can get outside of regulation, real money happens whenever you don't have to play by rules. Because that's whenever the ceiling on things is pretty much infinite. So of course they want to do that. Of course they want to capitalize on that. It just makes sense. I'm afraid Apple will release something that's such an insane must-have, and that'll be it. No, I don't think that's the case at all. It's the same thing. Like, I mean, Microsoft came out with the Zune, and then honestly, like we've had most people are not buying Apple desktop computers nowadays. Like, I think mainly the only people that buy those are, liberals and fucking video editors. Like, that's about it. Nobody else is buying these things. And let's see, iTunes, like iPod, everything like that. Yeah, designers. Yeah. Well, I said that. I said liberals. But anyway, the point that I'm making, by the way, guys, for anybody that's going to get mad about that, it's a joke. So just don't get your feelings fucking hurt and start going on Twitter crying about it. So yes, iPod effectively got outdated by the iPhone. Like the iPhone cannibalized the iPod. Because people can do the same thing that the iPod did on the iPhone, and it's better. And then after that, let's see, the iPad. I feel like there's many other different, different fucking tablets. I mean, you have the Microsoft Surface, you have the Samsung ones. I have one of the Samsung ones. It was pretty good. I'll probably, whenever I buy a new one, I'll probably buy one of the iPads. But yeah. iPod, you can pirate music though. You can pirate music on an you can't pirate music directly on an you can do the same thing on an iPhone. Yeah, that's really what it is. iPod Touch was really big for 4 gens. Yeah. So I do think that it's it's not going to be as definitive as you might think, and even the definitive nature of it will change in the same way that the iPod changed into the iPhone. Link the video one more time. But yeah, you did a better job explaining that in the multi-billion-dollar company. Yeah, I think this is probably the best explanation of the metaverse that I've probably ever heard.